mission is forced to abort, and an injured Watney is left for dead, but he's alive and survives by rationing supplies, growing food, surviving a water-making mishap, and engineering a trip to where his foresight. Earth realizes he's alive. They establish communication and plan supply and rescue. The hab implodes. Crops are destroyed, forcing a timeline update as Mark repairs the hab. The rush supply mission fails, and all hope is lost. With Hermes on a rich Purnell maneuver, a stripped-down MAV-4, and China's Taiyan Shen, they plan another mission. They launch the MAV, and despite many hiccups, they rescue Mark and return home to much fanfare.
Hello, darling. This is Writerzeye. Thanks for watching. You are supporting my writing habit, and if you love Spy-Fi and Sci-Fi trilogies, subscribe for your free copy of Volume 1. See details linked below.
The 90s were Hollywood's halcyon years when it produced some of its greatest films on film, with great writing and relatively less reliance on special effects. Some say that Hollywood left great writing behind when everything went digital. Do you lot agree? Special effects technology and writing seem to be racing in opposite directions these days, the former improving, the latter regressing. So, I must say that The Martian was rather refreshing. That's right, The Martian has a 90s vibe, and that's good. Even so, as good as The Martian is, hold on to your knickers, darling, because I'm about to make you cross is something I have to say about the writing. And to guide my own writing.
From books and writing gurus I donated money to, I got almost 300 tips that I distilled down to 20 essential guiding tenets, 10 of which I deem utterly unbreakable, such that to break 3 or more of these unbreakable laws invariably breaks a film. I call these cinema laws, partly inspired by cinema sins and cinema wins, except we try to focus on the craft of writing, which should be sorted out long before the camera rolls. So, garbage or gold? Let's find out.
We open up on a gorgeous dead red planet, and some posit that there used to be life on this planet, that there's evidence of thermonuclear war. Homo Martians, anyone? Love these theories, man, I really do. There's so much stuff out there, man. Project Looking Glass, Anunnaki. Anyway, humans banter on an alien planet, bringing humanity back to Mars.
Martinez, the captain would like you to please, shut your smart mouth.
Shut him off.
What? Can't chat in space? Too busy checking our Mars book, are we? People talking to each other using their lips. Come on, darling, you gotta let that go. Oh, darling, let that go. We go from that to Lost Signal Mark's suit. What do you think, CE or APP? Alright, first of all, I love this film, but 2 massive things struck me as odd. And it wasn't until I heard what all the clever people at NASA said about the film that I put it all together.
He was blagging it, wasn't he? You suss it out, did ya? Oh, go on, tell us.
You know what? Just let me shut up and get on with it. More about that later. Jason Bourne is an astronaut. A lot of gurus will tell you that nuanced dialogue with subtext is the holy grail of dialogue. And not to contradict them, but I don't think that goes far enough. I think multifunctional dialogue with nuance and subtext is the holy grail. And this opening sequence here is a beautiful example of it. On the surface, the banter is humorous, but it's also multifunctional because in addition to setting the stage with the mission's parameters, it also establishes the rapport and relationship dynamics of the team. And it doesn't stop there, darling. No, it doesn't. It foreshadows. And it is also the first half of a juxtaposition setup. A juxtaposition setup that gives us authentic plot progression. In other words, this Watney chap, botanist extraordinaire as we learn, is quite the affable and gregarious lad, isn't he, the cheeky little bugger?
Martinez, the captain would like you to please, shut your smart mouth.
We go from his gift to the gab in action to now seeing him isolated with no one to talk to, marooned on Mars by the very captain who shut off communication. Communication being the key element of Watney's survival on Mars. So this line here has gravitas.
And that constant communication is the hallmark
Shut him
of any
off.
team that...
Right there, we have a microcosm of the entire film. He's Billy No Mates now, isn't he? All by himself. Do you wanna be all by himself? Do you wanna be? If Watney was a puppy, he'd be making dog noises by now.
If the oxygenator breaks, I'm gonna suffocate. If the water reclaimer breaks, I'll die of thirst.
This came directly from the book, and I'm really glad they didn't change it. Brilliant writing and great exposition and use of the fourth wall to spell out the type of conflict and its odds of survival. Man versus environment and man versus circumstance. The doom and gloom of the scene really gets the message across, and just like that, we have our central question. More storms, the shaking hab, tagging an RFID. They even tagged the poop in the loo for analysis. I guess you press your name and flush and boom, it gets wrapped and tagged. RFID, remember that. More about that later. Hang on a minute. Mark Watney, astronaut, didn't wipe his bum, did he? Oh, he's got a lot of that on his mind right now, hasn't he? And now has to remember the potatoes. Luckily for us,
I'm a botanist.
he's a botanist and a mechanical engineer, according to the book.
Solanum tuberosum.
And the race is on.
Yo, hands up, Jesus.
What was he expecting? Roses? Girls drop logs too, and they fart, mate. And it doesn't smell like roses either. Yeah, get your kit off. Jesus Christ and funds. I wonder what's going on there. No clues in the book about this, but perhaps a prayer to God so his crops grow, eh? Rebuked by God. Oops, humility. Good news. Well, good news, bad news is the name of the game in films, and we were well due for that. Well, he made the earth, and it was all good, and his spirit roamed across the land, and he made it rain across the land.
Hey there.
Yay! Nice transition to Earth and the dramatic irony and the conflict over satellite time and funding. That's the real beauty of this film and why it's so riveting. There's organic conflict every step of the way, triggering a chain reaction of conflict. Conflict on Mars, conflict with colleagues, conflict of interest, design conflict. It's a perfect cascading cluster of conflict. When Mindy Park finds out Mark is alive, the film executes this scene with a genius rally of refutations and rebuttals going back and forth.
Solar panels have been cleaned. It could have been cleaned by wind. Just took it out, Sol 17, plugged it into the hab to recharge.
She could have forgotten to log the
No,
move.
not likely.
It's a massive improvement over the book. What is he thinking?
I'm definitely gonna die up here if I have to listen to any more god-awful disco music.
Listening to disco music, that was forced humor. 6 astronauts, 6 tastes in music. They all left their music behind in their laptops, and so did Watney, so he could have listened to something else, but we would have missed Matt Damon having an epileptic fit, otherwise known as disco dancing. I couldn't stop laughing at that. And the pacing too. The pacing was brilliant, spot on, with the press conference being one of my favorite spots with the laconic responses. Couple that with Watney's incorrigible humor.
I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
My balls are frozen.
Even Mark Watney knows the laws of screenplay dynamics. Good news, bad news, digging up death to stay warm. With all the tinkering he gets up to with Pathfinder and everything else, they could have mentioned that he was an engineer too, like the book did, but then his mate wouldn't get a chance to tease him so hard about being a botanist. Good news, bad news. Hexadecimals, ASCII, a receiver telescope messaging, see, another laptop. If the cameras are identical, they could have just written messages by hand and photographed them just like that, instead of resorting to ASCII roulette in the first place. Alright, you clever people, what am I missing there? What the F word is effing wrong with you? Hilarious, but the book is funnier and cruder too, with Mark Watney's humor toned down for the MPAA. They finally tell the crew, and it's not good news. Now they want a picture, and they could have just used one of the numerous GoPros in the hab and emailed an image, but it's more cinematic experience for the sake of humor to invent a non-problem.
I need a picture of his face.
Well, I could tell him to take off his helmet, but then he'd, die.
So, $12 worth of food, we get there on 8:68. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong.
Oh no, he just had to say that blatant foreshadowing kiss of death. And here comes trouble in paradise, because a story is no story without conflict. All the hard work is gone. And you really feel that desperation there. It was all going so well, then Teddy just had to jinx it, didn't he? Big mouth.
I'm gonna need to change your clothes.
I'm gonna need to change it because I just pooed myself. I swear to God, Benedict Wong is the Asian Samuel Jackson. He's in every other film, isn't he? I wonder if they share agents. Michael Pena is one of my favorite actors, man. From Crash to Ant-Man and everything in between. His range is insane. Pressure stable, Paradise Restored. Enter Rich Pennell. Astrodynamics. Grown-up Bambino. Did you lot used to think he was Danny Glover's son as well? He only appears in a few scenes, but they were quite hilarious. We're cutting corners to launch the probe, and of course we lose it, leading to Mark Watney's darkest hour. All is lost. Watney goes from his emotional zenith to nadir as he prepares for death at the all-important midpoint, and down with the forced collapse, which at this point we don't know yet, but surely suspect. Now, here's the genius of this script that I love so much. In the hands of a lesser writer, the upcoming solution would just be slapped on like a plaster on an aneurysm, but the seed for this eventual hour has been established earlier on in rather mysterious fashion as an interwoven unifying element that has come due, served up in more dramatic irony, because we know something that the main characters don't. Rich Pennell. Haha! What is Rich Pennell cooking up? The socially inept genius isn't quite Sheldon Cooper, but he's recognizable as the resident impertinent clever Trevor. He must be the way out because it's only an hour and 20 minutes in. The writer throws us a curveball, however, should we be so presumptuous, and brings in China to help America. way the book explains it, scientist to scientist, makes it more plausible in a quid pro quo sense than the seemingly altruistic tone that the film takes. I'm sorry, I have to redub that.
说干嘛？我们应该帮助。我们为什么要帮助美国？我们为什么要帮助敌人？不是啊，他们是我们的朋友。我不相信你。为什么？我放弃了。什么？你有美国亲人吗？没有啊。
我戴了帽子。我认为你有一个美国男朋友。
也许他是个间谍。
有病啊！
你有药吗？
Either way, it's good news. Uncle Tommy in China is helping Uncle Sam, and it's back to Rich Purnell at the Pleiades supercomputer with the other half of the good news. Calculations correct. Boom. But calculations for what? Rich Purnell's apparent disregard for authority and his reticence to prematurely divulge serves up more suspense and drags us along as we daren't blink as we race towards a resolution. Gets on a plane, barges in past the secretary, and orders a superior to hang up, all leading to a mission briefing. Project Elron commences with more hilarity and meta bedwetting, starting with that look on his face as if she just said she doesn't know water is wet. Nerd rule. I'm the director of NASA.
You are. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Teddy. I'm the director of NASA. Rich?
Yes, sir.
Get out.
Absolutely cracks me up, man. So what follows is exposition on the new possibilities presented by Rich Purnell, and a lesser writer would have just dropped it right in the nose, but it's so cleverly infused with present and pre-established conflict. For more on this, see the Dead Reckoning upload. It's absolutely brilliant and underrated writing that brings us to Johansson on an elliptical. Is it Johansson or Johansson? Johansson. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. No, not Kate Mara, the set. Oh, she's fit too, but she's a fit bird, but that is one beautiful set, man. Like the set of Oblivion. I love that set, man. Wouldn't mind living up in the clouds. Starman Waiting in the Sky is such a wonderful touch as we go through this very poignant montage of the Hermes crew connecting with family and getting back to the serious business. Get your kit off, you skinny little git. Time to go. Ridley Scott managed to convey that long journey with sweeping vistas without lack, and then we get that shot of adrenaline with another round of conflict-infused exposition on the weight problems, punctuated by Mark Watney eloquence. Mark Watney, fastest man in the history of space travel. The Winter Soldier. Jason Bourne emerges from Martian Gump. Why did they make all of his food sound crunchy?
Tell that asshole no barrel rolls.
Great acting, mate. And thus begins the final leg, still replete with tension and the very real possibility that anything could go wrong, as every solution brings hope, but also brings another problem that needs to be solved. The Martian was very tense from beginning all the way to the very end. The source material was fantastic to begin with. Ridley Scott's direction was great, measured as usual. The cinematography was stunning. The editing was flawless. And I have to say, with all due respect to the Bourne franchise, that this is probably my favorite Matt Damon film. But then again, I'm partial to science fiction. Having said that, I had serious problems with the film. I didn't think NASA would abort, not with tether technology, and I didn't think they would lose an astronaut. Not like that, they wouldn't. First of all, assuming that the lads and ladies at NASA are as clever as we think they are, and they bloody well are, one would certainly hope that locating and tracking astronauts would be mission critical, yeah? Meaning that, in lieu of the absence of GPS that we have on Earth, they would establish a ground-based network of communication relays, possibly using orbiters, beacons, and ground stations to maintain constant contact with astronauts. They would map the air with drones, and let's not forget that it's not like you just pop around the corner to the petrol station for an oil change at your local Quick Fit or Jiffy Lube, so you'd expect these valuable astronauts to have redundant wearable tech like homing beacons and RFID tags to leverage TRN and AR for real-time location data and navigation assistance. Yeah, better yet, you chip the astronauts, man. No, it's not new tech at all. So I thought it was a bit of a stretch that you'd be good at rocket science and be daft at keeping track of people essential to a mission, so I was like, what? No. On the other hand, though, the scientific authenticity of the source material had been touted to all galaxies, so I was wondering, was there something lost in translation then? Since I was stuck at the airport waiting for my flight, I just grabbed the paperback off one of those book spindly things in it. Really good book. So, was something lost in translation then? Too right there was. The reason for leaving was a bit more elaborate in the book, but that still didn't batter my cod. The astronauts are trapped in the hab, huddled together in their spacesuits just in case the hab loses pressure, and after an hour and a half of the MAV's delicate components being sandblasted by winds that could disable it completely and leave them all stranded, NASA orders the abort, so they have to brave getting back to the MAV. They head out but lose Watney along the way and can't afford to wait, and then let's say the tether python snapped at this point, threatening imminent tip over. There, I might actually buy that. I said might. Okay, so this offending tipping sequence is actually in a flashback in the book on page 17, or the beginning of the second act. And since most screenwriting gurus discourage the use of flashbacks, relegating to the in case of fire break glass usage, I understand why Drew Goddard yanked it out and slapped it up front. Plus, it's good practice to have us meet all our main characters in Act 1, and in this case, burden the crew with the guilt of leaving a man behind. But I'm still not buying it. NASA is synonymous with geniuses, and I'm not sure government agencies are predisposed to aborting billion-dollar operations on account of inclement weather.
I say we abort. That's it. We're going to abort.
And you want to call it on account of rain?
But that's celluloid wisdom for you. One is pure fantasy, the other is based on hard science. But in the chosen premise, the question of redundancies and tether pythons remains. NASA uses RFID on all space items, big and small, so nothing is ever really lost in space, not even poop. Especially not a spacesuit with $1 million astronaut in it. One would expect astronauts to be chipped. And tether technology is an entire sector of its own. With items costing $31 per gram to launch at the time of this recording, weight is the enemy of NASA, so the MAV had to be light and lean. So why didn't NASA design the landing struts of the MDV to be repurposed as additional anti-tilt legs for the MAV, especially when you're aware of the storms? It's almost like sending a man to the moon at the cost of billions only to have him leave and return to Earth because it's raining and you didn't pack an umbrella to save weight. Anyway, it's not in a book. And no, I'm not slacking off the film. No, I love it. I absolutely love this film. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying what bothered me when I was watching it. And FY Bleeding Eye, the story of how this film got made was instrumental to me starting this channel. So without further ado, let's take some time to give the man his flowers. Andy Weir, a computer programmer by day, super duper space geek hobbyist, did some intense research without any direct human contact apparently. He just Googled everything, but the book is so detailed, you truly will believe it if his bio said astronaut. This bloke even wrote a computer program to calculate the Rich Pennell maneuver, one that NASA later said had only a 3% margin of error. I mean, 3% will kill the astronauts according to NASA, but for a book, that is some good research. I do a lot of research for my own writing, but the level of research that Andy Weir did for The Martian is in Michael Crichton territory, and that makes me a fan, because as far as I'm concerned, Michael Crichton is one of the greatest of all time at techno-thrillers. Reading Jurassic Park got me hooked on Michael Crichton's techno-thrillers, and completely changed the way I approach research and writing. In fact, he's mainly responsible for my pivot to sci-fi. You're not really any cleverer after reading these books, but you feel clever for having read them, unlike some stuff where you lose brain cells. I especially like how the book explains how the suit expanded the nitrogen that you normally use to neutralize CO2, then switch to oxygen to keep him alive, making his suit a bit oxygen-rich when he finally regains consciousness. There's no way the film could have given us those details except with a dreaded voiceover over-explaining everything, so I'm glad, really glad they dispensed with that.
So if you liked it, what's the problem then, mate?
Oh, it's a big one. To fully enjoy The Martian, you have to ignore the fact that the catalyst is based on a faulty premise. Never base your catalyst on a faulty premise. And even if you play along and shut your brain off, certain questions immediately flash up, and I try to ignore these questions, but I couldn't. For instance, like I hinted at earlier, why weren't tether pythons used to hold the MAV upright? NASA represents the cleverest people in America. The technology to keep Mark Watney safe exists. So why do the best and brightest of NASA appear remiss? Why? You know why? Because there'll be no story. The entire story is based on something that would never happen. Other than that, it's a brilliant tale that I thoroughly enjoyed. Drew Goddard did a good job adapting Andy Weir's book, but he inherited the faulty premise. Coming up next to the screen in front of you. According to the clever people, Neil deGrasse Tyson included, Mars' atmosphere is 1/10 of Earth's atmosphere, and the winds would not be strong enough to blow pebbles, let alone a human. Or a human, let alone a map. So, ta-da! And if the storm were a threat, the clever people at NASA would have engineered the map to withstand this. And that, boys and girls, is a faulty premise you have to ignore, because apart from the atmosphere and the gravity on Mars and severely underestimating NASA's ability to engineer around the elements, the rest of the science is mostly dead on balls accurate. The faulty premise gave rise to all those questions, but it was a good gamble. It was a good gamble because most of us know nothing about Mars, thus suspending our disbelief, just like Top Gun Maverick with a super simple bombing mission made to look impossible. Mark Watney's raunchy humor and his entire personality from the novel were toned down, but it all came through still enough to get you howling, making the plucky Watney a likable character as opposed to the interstellar one. The effort of NASA, the conflict, the Hermes crew, CNSA, and the hilarity of Rich Pennell all coalesced to make this a very, very important movie. It's absolute gold. And of all the movies of humans marooned, this ranks above them all for me. It scored 91 on Rotten Tomatoes, which I'll take in a heartbeat. But when you look at films that score higher, they weren't as riveting as this, even though they might have been more unique. Ex Machina, for instance, scored 92, but wasn't a film I wanted to watch again. Creed scored 95, but I thought it was just an okay collection of money-grabbing cliches, which is why I find the writing in The Martian stellar. The Martian brings us themes we've seen before in Robinson Crusoe, I Am Legend, and more pertinently, Gravity, Interstellar, Apollo 13, and Space Odyssey. So we know where this feel-good movie is going, but with its combination of the conventional conflict, the oddly humorous tone, and the emotional hooks, one remains engaged all the way through. It was a diverse film with Martinez, Vincent Kapoor, and Rich Pennell, and Commander Lewis's redemption at the end must have had the ladies cheering. This is how you show women in believable leadership roles leading men where physical strength is redundant. This film has to be up there with some of my favorites like Contact, Hunger Games, The Age of Tomorrow for strong women in strong, believable roles. Everyone got to see themselves in a good light. More of this and less of that. Hooray for Hollywood in this one, actually. Hooray for Ridley Scott, Drew Goddard, and Andy Weir. Hooray for the unsung departments. What is the most important moment in this film? Rich Pennell calculating the way to bring Mark home, Mark finding the Thanksgiving potatoes, the Chinese supplying the Thai Sheng. The answer is B. Recalling the fresh buds back for the Thanksgiving dinner might just be the most important moment in this film, because without them, Mark doesn't survive long enough to be rescued. There's no colonizing Mars, no growing crops to live long enough for supplies, and Mark Watney dies. Anyway, you just supported my writing habit.
Subscribe so I can thank you properly with a free copy of Volume 1 of my sci-fi trilogy, TCP.
Thanks to you, I'm converting 25 screenplays into novels. They're all sci-fi, some of them are trilogies, and the first volumes are free to subscribers.
If perchance you're not the reading type and just like the content, thank you all the same. Your simple act of watching, liking, and subscribing gives my life meaning, and I want to thank you for it. So do subscribe for this, more, and other rewards that might be coming your way. Thanks for watching.
Most people will watch Free Guy and dismiss it as some bubblegum film, which isn't to say it's not, but in the age of films like The Matrix 4 and trash like F9 and FX, this is one of the really cleverly written films out there. It's a lot better than you think. It's so clever, in fact, most people miss what made it so great. Did you miss it as well? Watch it next to find out.